Consider this your special present. You're terminated, effective immediately. Those words should have utterly devastated me. Yet, as I stood transfixed in Chadwick Grayson's sleek glass-walled office, encircled by sad, prefab birthday streamers and a neglected chocolate cake, a strange tranquility settled over me, a sharp, clear stillness. He delivered the news with a smirk, as if bestowing a luxury handbag. "Go on, clear out your desk, Harper. We'll deactivate your network credentials in 10 minutes. I gave a single nod. No protests, no tears, just quiet composure. I turned, moved past the bewildered front desk associate who blinked as if caught in a bizarre office gag, and stepped into the elevator without a backward glance. The chrome doors slid shut. My own reflection gazed back. Today marked my 35th birthday. A Leo's birthday, no less, usually a day for strength and celebration, not this. It had commenced in such a contrasting way. My husband, Ethan Vance, had brewed my coffee at 6:30 a.m., warbling "Happy Birthday" off-key while our 2 rescued pups pranced around our ankles. He'd pressed a kiss to my forehead and murmured, "Just power through work. Then the true celebration begins." That morning, I'd imagined true celebration involved a fancy dinner reservation or perhaps a spontaneous weekend escape. It turned out to be something profoundly different. Now, seated in my car's driver's seat, my defunct employee badge still swaying from the rearview mirror, I dialed Ethan. He answered instantly. "Happy birthday, darling," he chirped. "What time should I swing by for you?" "I'm already out," I stated softly. "I was let go." A beat of silence. "Today, 10 minutes ago." Another pause. "Chadwick?" "Yes," the line hummed again. Then Ethan let out a soft chuckle, not from humor, but with an odd, knowing understanding. "Good," he declared. I blinked. "Good," he sighed. "Harper, we've discussed this. You were never truly secure there. You knew it, and I knew it. You were single-handedly propping up Summit Ridge Designs, while Chadwick played CEO charades." He wasn't wrong. I'd joined Summit Ridge Designs 5 years prior, back when it was a modest yet esteemed architectural firm, renowned for its ethical practices and clean aesthetics. I was brought on as a lead project coordinator. But within a year, I'd revamped their project management pipeline, interwoven comprehensive safety and regulatory adherence across all divisions, and saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in botched inspections. When Arthur Grayson, the original founder and Chadwick's father, presided, I was valued, advanced, and listened to. Then Arthur suffered a stroke, and Chadwick, the son armed with a vague business degree and a hefty trust fund, was positioned to inherit the mantle. In under 6 months, he'd axed the legal vetting team, onboarded a PR firm nobody needed, and transformed my department into his personal punching bag. He conveniently forgot to include me in crucial meetings, dismissing my reports as excessively technical. And now, on my birthday, a true Leo's day, he bestowed the ultimate present, my dismissal. By the time I pulled into our driveway, Ethan had already changed out of his work clothes. He stood in the kitchen, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "What's this?" I inquired, setting down my keys. He smiled. "To endings." I blinked. "And to what unfolds 4 hours from now?" he added, clinking his glass against mine. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" He offered no verbal reply, just a kiss to my cheek and the simple instruction, "Just trust me." 3 hours and 46 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the couch beside me. A missed call, then another, then 5 more. By the time I checked the screen, it displayed 98 missed calls. Every single one from Summit Ridge Designs, the office manager, 3 department heads, even Chadwick himself. And just like that, a realization hit me. This wasn't merely a termination. This was a catastrophic blunder, one they absolutely couldn't afford to make. Before I disclose what transpired next, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Many viewers follow these sagas but forget to tap the bell icon. And trust me, given how this story unfolds, you won't want to miss the subsequent installment. Back to the narrative. That evening, as Ethan and I relaxed under the string lights in our backyard, he finally explained what he'd been aware of for weeks. Chadwick approved the Eaglecrest Estates deal last Friday, he began. And he submitted the blueprints under your name, but he'd significantly altered your original designs. My stomach churned. Ethan, that's illegal, he nodded, and incredibly dangerous. My hands began to tremble. Eaglecrest Estates was a $22 million housing development. One structural flaw, one overlooked code, and he'd forged your sign-off, Harper. That's when the truth solidified. By firing me, Chadwick hadn't just eliminated a competent individual. He'd erased the sole person capable of defending against what was coming. And that, I understood, wasn't the conclusion of my story. It was merely the beginning. I barely slept that night, not from sorrow or apprehension, but from the sheer, burning fury ignited by what I'd uncovered. Fired on my birthday, yes. But more than that, my name, my credentials, my professional standing. All weaponized by a man who couldn't design a fire escape without consulting a YouTube tutorial. Chadwick had counterfeited my endorsement on the Eaglecrest Estates development plans. And now, with me out of the picture, no one remained to answer questions when inevitably things went awry. Because trust me, they would go wrong. The Eaglecrest project had been my passion. I dedicated 6 months to perfecting those blueprints, ensuring every elevation, every code specification, every material choice was impeccable. I knew the soil grades. I'd personally walked the construction site. I'd flagged the unstable perimeter wall that Chadwick had dismissed as just cosmetic. So, when Ethan displayed the submitted plans that night, stamped with my digital signature, but conspicuously missing critical safety features I'd fought to include, I understood precisely what had occurred. Chadwick had stripped my version down to something cheaper, faster, and far more hazardous. He thought no one would notice, and then he dismissed me, likely hoping I'd quietly disappear with no reason to ever look back. By 8 a.m. the following morning, my phone had accumulated 119 missed calls. The most recent voicemail was from Brenda Maxwell, the compliance officer. Harper, I'm not sure what's happening, but we can't access the Eaglecrest system files. It keeps demanding the primary architect's override. He's panicking. Please call me back, please. I didn't return her call. Instead, I sent a single text to Brenda. Speak to your legal team before contacting me again. This message will be saved. And then I retrieved my bag, slipped my laptop inside, and turned to Ethan. I need a favor. He raised an eyebrow. I need a meeting with someone high enough to take this seriously. The Eaglecrest contract was submitted to the city. Who handles post-approval compliance checks? Ethan didn't even hesitate. My boss, Director Olivia Thompson, I'll call her. 2 hours later, I sat opposite Director Olivia Thompson in a quiet conference room at the Department of Metropolitan Planning. A sharp woman in her early 50s with clear-rimmed glasses and a no-nonsense demeanor. I laid out everything. The original Eaglecrest plans, my authentic version, Chadwick's altered submission, the forged timestamp from my login credentials, which I proved had occurred while I was on vacation 3 weeks prior. Director Thompson didn't interrupt once. She simply took notes, nodded slowly, and finally stated, Harper, what you're presenting isn't merely unethical, it's criminal. If those homes were constructed with these specifications and something failed, families could die. I replied flatly. She tapped her pen. I'm going to flag the Eaglecrest permit for an emergency review. And you're going to need legal representation. If your name was forged, you're not responsible. But the optics could get messy. I nodded. I'm ready. Back at home, Ethan handed me a printed email. Subject, Urgent Harper. Please call me. From Arthur R. Grayson, founder and former CEO, Summit Ridge Designs. I hadn't spoken to Arthur since his stroke the previous year. We'd exchanged a few polite texts during his recovery, but he hadn't been involved in day-to-day operations since Chadwick assumed control. Ethan sensed my hesitation. You should talk to him, he said quietly. He's not like Chadwick, so I called. Harper. Arthur's voice rasped through the line, weaker than I remembered, but still sharp. What happened? You mean besides being illegally fired and having my signature forged on a multi-million-dollar project? Silence, then softly, I'm sorry, I never should have handed him control. I let the silence hang before replying, it's done now. Can you meet me? I'm not interested in coming back, Arthur. I'm not asking you to, I just need to talk, please. I agreed. We met later that afternoon at a small cafe far from downtown. Arthur looked older, thinner, but regret clung to him like a second skin. I built that company for 30 years, he said, and my son undid it in less than one. I thought he just needed structure. I didn't realize he needed a leash. I remained silent. Arthur continued. Brenda told me what he did. He's denying it, of course, said you sabotaged the files. I laughed bitterly. Of course he did. He leaned forward. Harper, if you pursue this legally, the company will collapse, you know that. I looked him in the eye. That's not my problem. He swallowed. What if I offered you something else? I'm listening. But before he could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, this one from Chadwick himself. Harper, look, maybe we can fix this. I didn't mean for it to go this way. We could talk. Come back, I'll undo the termination. We'll call it a miscommunication. Miscommunication. I ended the call and looked back at Arthur. They're scared, I said, and they should be. I didn't respond to Chadwick's message, not out of strategy, at least not initially, but because I physically couldn't. My hands trembled too much. The man who fired me with a smirk on my birthday now wanted to undo it like it was a poorly timed calendar invitation. Miscommunication, he'd said, as if terminating someone, forging signatures, and risking public safety was a simple typo. He had no idea that the city had already frozen the Eagle Crest project. No idea that Director Thompson had opened a formal inquiry. And no idea that I wasn't coming back. Not ever. The problem was, the deeper I delved into what had transpired, the more chilling my realization became. It wasn't just Eagle Crest. That evening, Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table with a folder full of printouts. These are Chadwick's permit submissions over the last 6 months, he said. I pulled them from public records, just compare them. One by one, I laid out the blueprints. One by one, the pattern became unmistakably clear. Cut costs, lower specifications, remove redundancies, shorten inspection timelines. And every time, a signature mine or someone else's from the design team. Names of people I knew had no idea their credentials were being exploited. I think Eagle Crest was just the first to almost hit the wall, I whispered. Ethan nodded grimly. We need to take this beyond the city. You mean the state board? I mean the licensing bureau, the ethics committee, anyone who will hold him accountable. The next day, I spoke with a construction ethics investigator. I didn't want to go public yet. I wasn't seeking fame. I wasn't out for blood. I just wanted the truth exposed and the risk stopped. But truth doesn't emerge quietly. By Thursday morning, a local news site ran the headline. Whistleblower flags major safety violations in $22 million Eagle Crest development. My name wasn't mentioned, but the quotes, the documents, those were mine. Within hours, 3 more outlets picked it up. City council members issued statements of deep concern. And Arthur called again. Harper, I don't blame you, but Chadwick, he's spiraling. He fired 2 more people yesterday. Legal is a mess. Clients are threatening to pull contracts. He paused. They want to talk to you. I stiffened. The board? No, Harper. I don't need an apology from a board that let this happen. They watched him dismantle everything. Arthur sighed. Then what do you want? I didn't answer, because honestly, I didn't know yet. That night, Ethan and I finally discussed something we'd both been sidestepping. What if this becomes bigger than we expected? He asked. What if people start coming after you? You mean legally? I mean professionally, personally, retaliation. Chadwick's the type. I nodded slowly. Then I'll need protection. From the closet, I pulled out an old binder, one I hadn't opened since I freelanced during grad school. Inside were sketches, flowcharts, system notes, a full outline for a project management system I'd once dreamed of building. One that would eliminate the need for manual tracking, flag inconsistencies in submissions, and store backup approval trails. I had stopped working on it once Summit Ridge Designs offered me a stable role. But now it felt like the right time. "I'm not going back," I said to Ethan, "but I'm going to build something better, something they'll need." 2 days later, I registered my company, Integrity Blueprint Solutions. Within 48 hours, I had a consultation request. Not from Summit Ridge Designs, of course, but from one of their biggest competitors. They'd seen the news. They'd read between the lines. By the following week, 2 more firms reached out quietly, discreetly. They didn't want to get caught in the headlines, but they did want better systems. Systems I could build. Meanwhile, Summit Ridge Designs was burning from the inside. Brenda Maxwell, the compliance officer, messaged me late one night. "Harper, everything is falling apart. Chadwick's been removed from daily operations, but we can't recover Eagle Crest. City says it's unsalvageable. We might lose our license." Then another message, this time from Arthur. "They want to offer you something, not employment, a contract. You oversee project integrity, full autonomy. We'll pay, just help us recover. Please." It was tempting. Not because I wanted to help them. I didn't. But because I knew what I'd built, what I was about to build, was the future. And part of me wanted them to pay to access it. Before I replied, I called Director Thompson at the city office. "Hypothetically," I asked, "if a private company partnered with the city to build a transparent project verification tool, could it replace the current filing system?" She didn't hesitate. "If it worked, absolutely, Harper. We'd pay for it." The real gift Chadwick gave me wasn't that text message on my birthday. It was the fire he lit under me, the chance to rebuild not just my career, but the rules themselves. And now I wasn't knocking on anyone's door. I was building the dam, building myself. I didn't respond to Arthur's message right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I wanted to make sure every word was delivered at the right time with the right leverage. 2 days after he reached out offering a contract, I sent a short reply. "We can discuss terms. My assistant will coordinate a meeting. I'll bring my conditions. I suggest you bring yours." Ethan raised an eyebrow when he read it. "You have an assistant now?" I shrugged. "Technically, it's my cousin Chloe, but she's good with scheduling and knows not to take crap from anyone." We both laughed, but beneath the humor, I felt something new, stability. Not in the way a steady job offers, but in something deeper. I had control over my path now, and no one, especially not Chadwick, could take that away again. The meeting was set for a Friday afternoon in a neutral downtown conference space. I arrived early, dressed in black slacks and a crisp navy blouse, confident but not flashy. I didn't want to be underestimated, but I also didn't want to walk in looking like revenge incarnate. That's not what this was anymore. Arthur arrived with 2 board members and the firm's attorney. "No Chadwick. Where is he?" I asked flatly, not bothering with small talk. "Removed from decision-making," Arthur replied. "He's on indefinite leave while the ethics investigation runs its course." I nodded once. "I've read your proposal," he continued, sliding a printed copy of my terms across the table. "You'd create and oversee an entirely new project integrity system, independent from our operations. You'd report only to the board." "That's correct." "You'd have access to every file, every permit, every blueprint. You'd audit everything before it goes to the city." "Yes, and if we object to one of your flags, then it doesn't move forward." "That's non-negotiable." The board attorney leaned forward. "You're asking for a lot of power, Miss Stone." "I'm offering a lot of liability protection, and frankly, after what happened, you need someone the city trusts. Right now, that's me." There was a pause. Arthur looked at the others, then back at me. "What's your rate?" I opened my folder and slid over a typed number. It wasn't outrageous, but it wasn't cheap either. The attorney looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, but Arthur didn't flinch. "Approved," he said, but I wasn't done. "One more condition." "Of course," Arthur replied. "Chadwick completes full retraining, every module I assign. He doesn't touch another project until I sign off." They looked stunned. "You want to supervise him? one of the board members asked. I want to educate him. If he's going to stay in this industry, he's going to learn to do it right or not at all. Another long pause. Finally, Arthur nodded. Done. I walked out of that room with a signed agreement in hand. It wasn't a return to Summit Ridge Designs. It was a restructuring of the power dynamic. They needed me. And this time, I was walking in on my terms with documented authority and legal insulation. They couldn't fire me. They couldn't override me. They couldn't ignore me. And Chadwick was about to be my student. A week later, I sent him his first assignment, Module 1, Fundamentals of Project Integrity and Compliance. He didn't reply, but 2 days later, the module was returned. Completed, accurate. I sent the next one and the next for 6 weeks straight. Every submission came back on time, sometimes with questions. At first, I assumed it was performative, a damage control act to rebuild his image. But slowly, I started noticing a shift. His tone changed. His responses became more thoughtful. In a few cases, he even caught things I hadn't flagged. Was it real or just a performance? I wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Integrity Blueprint Solutions was growing. After the news of my Summit Ridge contract broke, 2 more city departments reached out for consultations. I hired Chloe full-time, then an intern, then a software developer to start building the verification tool I had outlined in that old binder. It was happening bit by bit. I was building what I had once only imagined. A system that wouldn't just catch mistakes, but prevent them. One that didn't need someone like me to manually verify everything. One that made ethical choices the standard, not the exception. One afternoon, Arthur called. Harper, we have a request. What kind? A client wants to know if you'd consider presenting the new project verification process at the Eagle Crest Town Hall. I hesitated. That's a public meeting. Yes. And you're the one person who can restore trust. Trust. That word again. But I thought about it, and I realized it wasn't just about Summit Ridge Designs anymore. The community had a right to hear from the person making sure this mess didn't happen again. I'll do it, I said finally, but only if Chadwick's there too. The Eagle Crest Town Hall was scheduled for a Wednesday evening in the community center gymnasium. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, and one long plastic table where Arthur, a city official, and I would sit. It was nothing glamorous, but it might have been the most important meeting of my professional life. I arrived early. The room was already filling up with residents. Some angry, some confused, some just curious. These were the people who had trusted Summit Ridge Designs to build their futures, their starter homes, their retirements, their children's backyards. And for a while, that trust had been badly misplaced. Arthur arrived next, followed by a staff member from the city's Department of Planning and Zoning. And then, almost exactly at 6:55 p.m., Chadwick walked in. He didn't look like the Chadwick I remembered. No smug smile, no expensive blazer, no phone glued to his hand. Just a plain blue button-down, sleeves rolled, and a manila folder under one arm. He gave a brief nod in my direction and took a seat in the audience. Interesting. At 7:02 p.m., Arthur stood and addressed the crowd. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Tonight is about transparency, about answering your questions and owning our mistakes. That begins with introducing the person who's been rebuilding our project integrity system, Harper Stone. I stepped up to the microphone, heart thudding against my ribs. I'd spoken at plenty of meetings in the past, but this wasn't just professional. This was personal. Good evening, I began. I know some of you might recognize my name from recent reports. I was a lead project planner at Summit Ridge Designs for 5 years. Last month, I discovered that my name had been used without my permission to approve project plans I didn't create. After I brought this to the city's attention, an investigation confirmed multiple compliance violations, many of which affected the Eagle Crest development. Murmurs rippled through the room. I continued calmly. Since then, I've been contracted as an independent integrity consultant to audit and rebuild all processes connected to Eagle Crest. What that means is every revised plan, every material order, and every safety compliance check now passes through a new system, one that I control. A woman in the second row raised her hand. Why should we trust Summit Ridge Designs again? Why should we believe anything now? It was the question I had expected. I nodded. You shouldn't take anything on faith, I said, but you can verify. We've created a public dashboard, updated weekly, with plan approvals, inspection dates, and compliance sign-offs. You'll know exactly what's happening and when. Another hand shot up, then another. Questions about soil stability, drainage, electrical planning. I answered each one thoroughly, not defensive, just factual. And that's when Chadwick stood. Everyone turned. He walked slowly to the front of the room, glanced at Arthur, then looked directly at me. "May I speak?" he asked. Arthur hesitated. I nodded once. Chadwick stepped to the mic. "My name is Chadwick Grayson. Many of you know me as the acting director of Summit Ridge Designs. Some of you knew my father when he ran this company with integrity. I did not honor that legacy." A beat of silence. I altered project submissions to cut costs. I overrode safety protocols. I used other people's credentials to approve plans that wouldn't have passed inspection. I believed I could manage the fallout. I was wrong. The gym was utterly silent now. I was removed from operations after the investigation, but over the last 6 weeks, I've been retraining under the guidance of Miss Stone. Not because anyone forced me to, but because I had to understand how badly I'd failed, and because if this project is ever going to mean something again, it starts with accountability. He turned back to the audience. I know I can't erase what I've done, but I'm committed to fixing it one step at a time. He returned to his seat. No applause, no outbursts, just a heavy, thoughtful silence. After the meeting, a few residents approached me. Some still skeptical, others quietly grateful. One elderly man said, "If you're the one fixing this, I'll sleep better tonight." That meant more than any corporate title I'd ever held. Chadwick approached just as I was packing up. "I meant what I said," he offered. I studied him. "Good, because this isn't over. Integrity doesn't happen once. It has to be maintained every step, every day." He nodded. "I understand." As he turned to leave, I called after him. "Why did you really stand up there?" He looked back. "Because you were right, not just about the project, about me. I didn't deserve the position I was given, and I never earned the trust I was handed. But maybe I can earn some back." I didn't respond. Not yet, because trust, like integrity, is something built, not given, and it was still under construction. 3 months passed. Eagle Crest Estates was officially reinstated, this time under strict oversight, weekly public audits, and triple verification systems. Construction resumed slowly, cautiously, under the weight of everything that had nearly gone wrong. But something had changed. Not just the project, not just the company, me. I was no longer waking up wondering if I'd be blindsided at a morning meeting or have my ideas ignored in favor of someone else's ego. I wasn't just working for someone anymore. I was working on something that mattered. Integrity Blueprint Solutions had secured 4 new municipal contracts. My system was being piloted in 2 counties. City officials were recommending it as a benchmark model. I was hiring full-time staff. And for the first time in my career, I wasn't chasing approval. I was setting the standard. One afternoon in early spring, I was invited to speak at a regional architecture and compliance conference. Nothing huge, just a panel discussion about ethics in urban development. I almost said no. But then I thought about the Harper from a year ago, the one who got fired on her birthday, who left the office without raising her voice, who quietly shut the door behind her while everyone else clapped for a man who didn't know half of what she did. And I decided to show up. When I finished my talk, a young woman approached me, early 20s, anxious but determined. "Hi, I just wanted to say your story, what you shared today. It reminded me of something I'm going through. I work under someone who keeps taking credit for my work. I thought maybe that was just the industry." I smiled gently. "No industry. That's just someone hoping you'll stay quiet." She blinked. "So, what do?" I handed her my card. "You document everything, you protect your work, and you start building something no one can take from you. She held the card like it was gold. Maybe to her it was. Back home that evening, Ethan grilled dinner while I watched the sun dip behind our newly finished fence. Our fixer-upper had become a haven, a little rough around the edges, but ours. He looked up from the grill. You know, it's been exactly 6 months since Chadwick fired you. I laughed softly. Feels like a lifetime ago. He raised an eyebrow. If you could go back, would you still walk out the same way? No question, I replied. But this time, I wouldn't wait so long to stand up for myself. He handed me a plate, and we sat down on the porch steps. You didn't just stand up, he said. You built something stronger than what they destroyed. I paused, taking in his words, then pulled out my phone. There was a message from Arthur. Harper, board approved the city-wide protocol expansion. We're adopting your system for all projects going forward. Congratulations. Below that, another from Chadwick. Completed Module 12. Site team caught a design error today because I flagged it first. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the quiet, listening to the dogs rustling in the yard, the sound of traffic in the distance, the world moving forward calm but not still. I thought about everything that had happened. The text on my birthday, the forging of my name, the silence I'd chosen over outrage, the system I built from an old binder. Late nights and a whole lot of bitterness turned into purpose. I didn't burn Summit Ridge designs to the ground, but I rebuilt the ground they stood on my terms with my tools, and no one could take that away. People ask me sometimes if I ever forgave Chadwick. The truth, I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't always the point. Maybe it's about creating enough distance between the person you were and the person you've become that their power fades on its own. What I do know is this. Revenge doesn't always look like scorched earth. Sometimes it looks like leadership. Sometimes it looks like walking back into the room, not to beg for your job, but to rewrite the way the job is done. Sometimes it looks like watching someone learn the lessons they once mocked you for knowing. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. You probably understand something a lot of people overlook, that the greatest revenge is not in making someone pay. It's in making yourself unshakable. It's in using what was meant to destroy you as the foundation for something stronger, more ethical, more respected, and fully your own. So, here's to being fired on your birthday, and to becoming the kind of person they have to call back, only to realize you no longer need to answer.